All right, let's talk about something we have all been through. You know the scene. Massive exam tomorrow, you're fueled by an energy drink, armed with a rainbow of highlighters, and you spend hours staring at a textbook until the pages are practically glowing. You feel like you're crushing it, so productive. But then you get to the test and nothing. A complete blank.
Oh, it's just the worst feeling, isn't it? And it turns out that feeling of working hard is often a trap. The stuff we're looking at today shows that a lot of what we were taught about studying is, well, kind of backward. So we're going to dig into the science and figure out how to break out of that trap for good. Okay, so here's the big idea. It all comes down to the difference between passive and active learning. We all grew up doing the passive stuff, right? Rereading our notes, highlighting everything, where you're just kind of letting information wash over you. But the science is super clear. Active methods, where you actually force your brain to do something, like test yourself or explain the idea out loud, are way, way more effective.
So if passive learning isn't that great, why does it feel so productive? It's because of this sneaky little thing called the illusion of competence. When you reread something, it becomes familiar. Your brain mistakes that familiarity for actual knowledge. But just because you recognize something doesn't mean you can recall it on your own when you're staring at a blank test paper. And that's the whole ballgame. So how do we fight this illusion? What's the #1 weapon to have in your study arsenal? It's our first big strategy. Active recall. And it's basically all about what it sounds like, forcing yourself to actually test yourself.
Let's just break that down a bit. When you're reading a textbook, you're putting information in. Active recall is the opposite. It's closing the book and forcing your brain to pull the information out, with no help, no clues. Yeah, it feels a lot harder, but honestly, that's the entire point.
And this right here is probably the most important idea we'll talk about. That mental struggle, that feeling of, I know this, what is it? That's not a sign you're failing. That is the process of learning. Every single time you struggle to retrieve a memory, you are literally making the connection to it stronger in your brain. That struggle is like a workout for your memory. Okay, so active recall tells us how to study, but what about when? I think we're all guilty of the last-minute cram session. And sure, it might work for 24 hours, but then, poof, the information is gone. To make knowledge actually stick, you have to be strategic and beat your brain's natural tendency to just forget.
And this right here, this is the enemy. It's called the forgetting curve, and man, it is brutal. It basically shows that we forget about 50%, half of what we learn within a single day if we don't do anything to review it. That steep downward slope is exactly why cramming is so useless for long-term learning.
But here's the magic trick. You can hack this curve using something called spaced repetition. So instead of one monster 5-hour study session, you study for shorter periods, but spaced out over time. Every time you review the material right as you're about to forget it, you hit the reset button on that curve. You flatten it out, and that is how you lock information into your long-term memory.
So we have active recall and spaced repetition for memorization. Awesome. But what about when a topic is just super complex? When you need to really, truly understand it, not just spit back facts? For that, we turn to the Feynman Technique. It's named after the brilliant physicist Richard Feynman, and the idea is deceptively simple. The true test of whether you understand something isn't if you can repeat it, but if you can explain it in the absolute simplest terms. If you can't explain it to a child, you probably don't really get it yourself. So why does this work so well? Because it forces you to strip away all the complicated jargon. It's so easy to hide behind fancy words to make it sound like we know what we're talking about. But when you're forced to use simple words, there's nowhere to hide. You instantly see where you're just repeating stuff versus where you actually understand it.
And that's the real goal here. The point isn't just about simplifying things. It's about diagnosing your own weaknesses. The moment you get stuck trying to explain something simply, bingo, you've just found a gap in your knowledge. Now you know exactly what you need to go back and focus on. It makes your study time incredibly efficient. Okay, we've got these amazing strategies, but they don't mean a thing if we don't actually do them. We have to talk about the final boss of effective studying, procrastination. We can have the best plan in the world, but if we can't get ourselves to just start, it's all useless.
This is where the Pomodoro Technique is a lifesaver. The idea of studying biology for 3 hours sounds awful and intimidating. But what about just studying for 25 minutes? Anyone can do something for 25 minutes. It's a little psychological trick that lowers the barrier to entry so you can just get started. The cycle is beautiful in its simplicity. You work with total focus for 25 minutes. Then you take a completely guilt-free 5-minute break. After you've done that about 4 times, you take a longer break. This rhythm prevents you from burning out and keeps your mind fresh, so you don't hit that mental wall. So let's just boil this all down. This is your new study playbook. Instead of just rereading, you're going to test yourself with active recall. Instead of cramming, you're going to spread it out with spaced repetition. For those really tough concepts, you're going to teach it using the Feynman Technique. And to beat procrastination, you're going to work in focused bursts with Pomodoro. At the end of the day, studying smarter isn't about more hours or more fluorescent markers. It's about being strategic. It's about shifting from being a passive recipient of information to an active participant in your own learning. It turns studying from a chore into a challenge. And the best part is that this stuff doesn't just help you ace the next test. It helps you actually retain the knowledge long after the class is over. It's a whole new way of looking at learning. So the only question left is, are you